Good evening, and welcome to another Think About It Thursday from our Journeys of Faith. My name is Henry Dotson, and this is the time of the week that we stop to think about it. So, today, our Think About It topic is we want you to think about the spiritual tug on your life to expect to do more and to meditate on what you've been through and how it has changed what you consider to be normal. So, this month, this is the month of June, we have been focusing on the new normal. And that is the new normal that you come to after you've been through a life crisis. So, oftentimes, when we go through a crisis, we're always worrying about, well, when will things get back to normal? And we've been talking about that this month. And we've said that at the beginning of the month, we said, well, you don't have to wait for things to get to the back to normal. First of all, they're not going to get back to normal. The normal that you knew before you went through your life crisis. It's going to be different anyway. And then the other thing we said is that the new normal is actually happening now. Whatever you're doing is the new normal. So you shouldn't be waiting for it. You're here. It's just figuring out how you can embrace it and lean into it. The other thing, though, we talked about for this week is that you are actually being called to your new normal. And that's what we've been talking about this week on the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week. So on Mindset Monday, we wanted you to have the mindset that you are being called to the new normal, to your new normal. Because normal is actually, there's two parts to it. First of all, there's the external normal, which is whatever you think is normal in your environment. And most people think that that normal is the one that most of the time you're talking about. What's going to be getting back to normal, getting back to doing the things that we used to do. And as I said, the normal that we have now is not the one that you had before you went through your life crisis. If you just think about the COVID pandemic that we've had, for example, what you did before that you considered normal is not what you do now that you consider normal. Hopefully, some of you have carried forward with you some of the good health habits that you should have. Even we should have had them before, but now that we do, things like washing your hands and covering your mouth when you cough to be mindful of others, those type of things. Before, they may not have been as normal as we hope they are today. And sometimes there are people now who have to wear masks, like me. I am immunocompromised, which means that my immune system is compromised because I still take chemotherapy. So when I get out in crowds, even though the CDC and all the public health officials have said that it's safe to go outside now without a mask, that applies to the bulk of the population. But for those of us who are immunocompromised, meaning our immune system is not as strong as it would be in a normal person, then we have to still be cautious. So our new normal is not going back to what we used to do before the pandemic. We still have to wear masks if we want to be safe as we go out and amongst large groups of people. We may even have to be conscious of social distancing. So that is our new normal. And the same applies to you. Some of the things that you used to do, you don't do now because your environment has changed. But that's just one side of the new normal. That's what's going on outside your environment. But you actually have a new normal on the inside. And we talked about that last week about things that have changed inside of you because you've gone through a crisis. And that has now become your new normal. The way you look at things has changed. If you've been through a life crisis where your life was at risk and you weren't sure that you were going to actually survive, then you've changed internally, perhaps how you look at life, how you look at death, how you look at your relationships, how you look at work, how you look at the material things that you aspire for. All these things have probably changed in you because of you have just gone through a life crisis. So your perspective has changed. So that now is your new normal. And that's something that has happened internally, not externally. It's happened internally. So we've talked about those two things. But now, this week, we've said that the new normal that you experience now, and we're talking more about the internal new normal, is a normal that you are being called to. And we talked a little bit about that as to, well, what does that really mean that you're being called to a new normal? That there's some type of an expectation that is drawing you to a different place than you were before you went through your life crisis. So what are we talking about? This being drawn to a new normal. Well, if you've gone through a life crisis, you find out very quickly that the things that you are going through are not in your control. And I think that's true with any crisis that you go through. If you find yourself in bankruptcy, by the time you get there, then the process that takes place and what happens, that's not in your control. If you go through a divorce, well, now if you've actually had a case filed in court, then you're not in control. The court has control. The court has certain procedures and processes that they go through that you don't get to say what they are. You just have to go through it. And of course, if you have a health challenge, you're definitely not in control. The doctors, they are in charge, but I'm not sure I would even go so far as to say that they are in control. So the point is that in certain cases, when you go through a life crisis, that there are things that are happening that are beyond your control. And for those of us who are believers, the comforting thing that we have in our minds and in our hearts and in our spirits and in our soul is that although we're not in control, we know the one who is in control. And that gives us comfort, and that gives us peace, and that gives us assurance that whatever's happening to us, it's not a surprise to God, that He didn't wake up that day that we discovered our life crisis was staring us in the face, and He found that out for the first time. God knew that this day was coming in your life before you were even knitted in your mother's womb. The word talks about how He knows the number of hairs on your head. He knows the number of days of your life, all before you were even birthed into this world. So when you go through a crisis, He already knows that you were going to go through that crisis. And He's already in control. He's already navigating the circumstances of your life. He's orchestrating the lives of others that you come into contact with. He's making things happen. So He's the one that's in control. And if you understand that and you trust Him, then you will believe that He is looking out for you. And because you've come out on the other end of this crisis and you're still here, then you know that He has, that He brought you through. Now, it didn't say that He was going to make it all disappear, but He gave you the wherewithal so that you could get through it. And for those who've gone through those types of life crises, we've changed. Our new normal inside has definitely changed. That we've grown in our faith, we've grown in our spirit because of what we've gone through. So that's what we're talking about when we say that you're being called to this new normal. Well, what we're really saying is that this was what we discussed on Tuesday on our Tuesday tip. We said that there is a natural promotion period after reaching the bottom of the valley. And that's when you're in your crisis and you're at your lowest point or you're at your most difficult point of struggle, that afterwards, there's a promotion that takes place at the bottom of the valley, that when you come through and you're back and you're out of the crisis, that it's characterized by accelerated spiritual growth and living radically for God. So what that means is, once you come through it and you know that God has brought you through it, your spirit has grown, your faith has grown. You know that God is real because you've been through something that he's carried you through. So it's not something that you've just read in the Bible, although we trust that the Bible is true, or it's not something that you've intellectualized or you have it in your head mentally, but it's something that you've gone through. And so you have your own testimony. You don't have to listen to other people and hear what they say and try to believe based on what they're telling you. You've gone through something. So you know, as you know, as you know, as you know, in your heart of hearts, that God is real. And because of that, you have this spiritual growth that makes you want to live more for God because of what he's done to you. So that's the change that we're talking about, that is now become your new normal. When you survive and you know that you're going to survive whatever you've been through, you want to tell people about what God did for you. And you want to be what he wants you to be. Some of you may even, at the depths of your sorrows or the depths of your pain or in the midst of the valley, you may even have made a promise to God and said, God, if you get me through this, I promise that I'll do fill in the blank. And now that he has, you feel obligated to live up to your commitment that you really want to do that. And so you press on to do what he wants you to do. And the scripture says that, and Paul wrote that, and we had that as our Wednesday wisdom. It's a scripture from Philippians, and it said, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize of God's heavenly calling in Jesus Christ. So that's the calling that we're talking about here this week, is there's a calling on your life to do something different, that your new normal isn't the old normal, that you've been changed. And you've been changed because of the miracles that God has done in your life as you've gone through that crisis. So that is what we're talking about here this week when we talk about you being called to this to your new normal. So the question that we had for you is, we wanted you to just think about the spiritual tug on your life to expect to and to do more. And that's what we want you to meditate on. Think about what you've been through and how it has changed what you consider to be normal. Not just the external environmental changes that are different that you're going to have to live with. Maybe you have to walk with a brace. Maybe you're in a wheelchair, or maybe there's something you can't do that you used to be able to do anymore. But this is more about what's happened on the inside. So we want you to think about what has changed and how that has become now your new normal, and realize that you've been called to it. You've been called to it because God brought you through. So think about that. Think about what it means to you and how you now are a different creature. You are a new creature because of what you've experienced. You've gone through a change, and you are the next best version of yourself because you've come through it. So that's what this Think About It Thursday thought is. And I hope that you spend your time doing that. So I would invite you, if you're interested in knowing more, that you can check us out on ourjourneysoffaith.life. That's our website where we talk about things like this. And if you're interested in knowing more, that's where you'll find the information. And I'm gotten involved in life coaching. So if you want to do some additional changes but don't know how, then I'm available to talk to you and see what your needs are in terms of a life coach. So you can also find out information there. So until next week, hopefully you'll think those thoughts, and we'll see you again next week on Think About It Thursday. Well, we'll wind up this the month of June, and we'll get into July. where we'll have a different topic that we're talking about. So until then, take care and God bless.